Hi there! Today we're going to make a hedgehog snuggle bag based on a tutorial that we found online, and the tutorial will be linked in the comments below. And there were just a couple of things about the tutorial that if you're a first-time sewer you might find difficult to understand. So this video is actually just a clarification of that tutorial. And we start off with 4 pieces of fleece, and we've got 2 of the camo cut here and 2 of this gray fleece. And in this case, the gray fleece has a wrong side and a right side. Most of the time fleece doesn't, and so the right side and the wrong side will look the same because there isn't a right side or a wrong side. And so we're going to start off with these 4 pieces, and we'll show you what we need to do with them. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to sew the matching colors together. So we just line them up. And we're going to sew 3 edges of it. In the case of a fabric that you're using that has wrong sides, that has, you know, the front side, the good side, and the bad side, we're actually going to put together the good sides. So we're going to match those up. And then we're going to just sew around 3 edges. The 2 long edges and 1 short edge, and we're going to leave one end open. And the seam allowance doesn't really matter. You can, right now I'm just putting the side of my foot right along the side of the fabric, and that's where I'm going to sew. Do a quick back stitch at the top. And these don't have to be tiny stitches, they can be long stitches. And my sewing machine's really loud. It's a sewing machine slash boat anchor. Great big old sewing machine. I'm going to make sure your edges line up all the way. Try not to pull your fleece too much because fleece is very stretchy. And you will actually stretch out the fleece in strange shapes while you're sewing. Turn the corner and away we go. And then when we get to the top, we're going to back stitch again at the top. Close that off. And then we're going to do the exact same thing with the other fleece. So now we've got both sets of fleece sewn around 3 sides. So we've got one end open on both sets. We want to turn one of these bags inside out. And one of the tricks that I want to show you before we do that is to clip the bottom corners of the bag. And let me show you if you want to get close with that. I want to clip this bulk off here with the corner, and so all I'm doing is I'm taking my scissors, and I don't want to clip too close to the stitching, but pretty close because I want to get rid of a lot of that bulk. So you can see that's what it looks like now. That'll make it easier to turn inside out. I'll do that quickly on the other one as well. So now we've got, so let's turn one bag inside out. I'm going to choose the camo bag to turn inside out. Just reach inside, flip it out, tuck the corners in, and then we're going to put this bag inside the other bag. Okay, so what this does is it puts the right sides together, and I'll show you what I mean by that. But tuck it in real good because I want the tops to line up. So this is the right side of the gray fleece and the wrong side of the gray fleece, and it's going to be connected to the right side of the green fleece. And now we're going to sew these 2 bags together to make one. And so what I do is I've got the bags open, and I want to make sure that the seams line up. And in order to avoid some of the bulk of the seams, because fleece is pretty heavy, I'm going to put one way and one the other way. instead of running them over both this way. And sometimes you can actually get them to go flat, but for this example I'm going to do it one this way and one that way. And then I'm going to start sewing, and I'm going to sew all the way around these, and I'm going to make them into one bag. And I'm going to leave myself a little bit of space so that we can turn the bags inside wrong, and I'll show you what we do with that, and we'll go from there. So we're going to start now, and we're going to sew these two bags together. So then I make sure I line the top of the bags together, and you can start anywhere you want to, really. I usually start pretty close to a corner, to an end seam. So I'm going to start about this far. Again, I'm just doing a small seam allowance and with the length of my foot there on the edge. And here you want to be sure that you back tack this starting place really good, because you're going to be actually pulling that seam a lot in a minute, and I'll show you that. So we're going to give it a good back tack. And then we're going to sew all the way around. So I'm going to video part of that, and then we'll turn it off so you don't have to watch the whole video process. But let me show you how we get that started. And how when we come to the seam, we just make sure that this one is going this way, this one is going this way, and again, that removes the bulk of the seams. And then we keep going all the way around. Okay? So I've gone almost all the way around with the sewing. This is where I started, sewing the two bags together. And I've gone all the way around, and I'm just about to finish. This is where I'm at, this is where I started. And so I need to leave a good space, 2 or 3 inches open here, so that we can turn the bags. And so I'm going to just do a couple more stitches here, and then a good back tack. And then we'll pull that loose, and I'll show you what we've got. So there's the two bags put together. And here's this little opening we have. And so now what we need to do is we actually need to use this opening to pull the bags out. I'm going to go completely inside out. So there I've got the bottom corner of the green inside. You pull it, and you keep pulling. You're actually going to pull the gray out as well. It all goes through that little hole. So here's the inside wrong. This is the wrong side, and now it's going to come through, and we'll have the right side of that corner pop out. And I've got a very talented videographer keeping track of me right now. So now there's the corners, the right side corners of the gray bag. There's the little hole where we pulled everything through. And here is the green bag with the right corners. So now what we need to do is finish this off and finish our little bag. So the easiest way to do this is to pull them apart and tuck the gray bag inside the green bag. Take some fiddling inside you can actually look inside if you need to, so you know what you're doing. Get the corners lined up. And then we want to pull, make sure we've got this edge here. That's what we're going to actually now finish the project by sewing this edge. Now we've got this hole where the seam is loose, and so we need to start by tucking those edges in a little bit. And we're actually going to start sewing there to close that off. Okay? So it doesn't matter which side you sew it on, we're just going to sew real close to that seam already. Again, a good back tack is important. And you don't want your seams too loose, your stitches too loose on this outside seam, because this is the only one that's actually where the string, the thread of the seam is actually going to be exposed. You can see here on these that there's no exposed threads for your hedgehog to get their toenails stuck in. So I've got the edges turned in, and I'm just going to quickly sew. There's a lot of bulk here because you're sewing through the 4 layers, and then when you get to the corners it's going to be even more bulk, so you may have to go real slow with your machine to make it over these edges. Let me sew a little bit more and then I'll show you what this looks like. So again, I'm sewing really close to that top seam, so you can see here's the part that I turned in, and that's what that's going to look like. You're going to have just a tiny little seam at the top, and we're going to do that all the way around until we get back to here. So I've sewn all the way around, and now I'm right back. I'm just past the seam, and now I'm almost to the end, and so I'm just finishing off this last seam. You can see that even my machine, which is a pretty strong machine, when it gets to these layers, it does have a bit of a hard time with it. So take your time. Don't try to rush your machine too fast. If you have to, you can always run it by hand instead of running it by electricity, and that gives it a little more time to not break your needles, hopefully. So here we are, back to where we started. And again, I'm just going to do a really good back tack to make sure that that doesn't come loose. Okay, pull that off. Trim those threads. And here we have our hedgie bag, our hedgie sleeping bag. And it's reversible, and it's also, all the seams are protected so you can't get your little hedgie feet stuck in them. So here's the gray side, there's the green side, and if you want to reverse it, you just flip it inside out. And it's got all kinds of warmth because of the fleece, and your hedgehogs will love it. I actually turn mine out like this so that they can find, there's a, kind of gives it some stability to the opening, and they can get in and out a little easier, but you don't have to. You can just leave it like that and they'll climb in and out. And hopefully this little tutorial will give you a better idea of how to do that flip inside out thing and get it all going the right way. It's super important when you're making anything for hedgehogs to make sure that the seams are enclosed, so that you don't have the edges of the fabric or the thread from the sewing sticking out for their little toenails to get stuck into. So there is a nice camo and gray hedgie snuggle bag.